Thank you, distinguished Mr. Valery, distinguished presidents of parliaments of small European states, dear fellow parliamentarians. It gives me a great pleasure to have the opportunity to address you today at the 15th Conference of Presidents of Parliaments of Small European States. I would like to thank Mr. Valery, President of the National Council of the Principality of Monaco, and our hosts, as well for their hospitality and the topics they have chosen for today's event. The basic goal of our annual meetings is to improve the relations and create better futures for our citizens. The world is currently facing extremely difficult challenges to sustainable development, and global challenges became increasingly complex and interlinked. This was proven by the COVID-19 pandemic and even more so by the ongoing war in Ukraine. They pose a growing threat to economic and overall stability, with repercussions to our efforts aimed to achieving sustainable development, which no single economy tackles alone. This is especially true for small economies. Because of their small size, countries such as Montenegro are more susceptible to volatility in times of economic crisis. This is partly driven by the fact that small countries tend to be more interconnected with other countries in terms of trade and investment. In this regard, I would like to point out that small countries are usually aware of their vulnerability. They are therefore more prepared to cooperate across borders between parties and interests, and also make use of their ability to adapt to changing environment at much faster rate. Moreover, I believe that future economic development and well-being of citizens of Montenegro is increasingly dependent on greater economic competitiveness of not only Montenegro, but the entire region of Southeast Europe. And I would like to emphasize the crucial importance of the regional cooperation and significance of aligning the regional with the domestic reform priorities and maintaining open and transparent communication channels. In this regard, by acting within the regional cooperation mechanisms, Montenegro is continuously contributing to the development of the region and its stronger international position and influence. By overcoming business and trade barriers and creating a unique investment destination with distinct competitive advantages. Furthermore, at first sight, small countries are in difficult position. As a rule, they are not powerful enough to impose their own influence on world affairs in any substantial way. In economic terms, they have to accept prices rather than fix them. Decisions made by others, bigger countries mostly, often have disappropriate impact. But I think almost no nation is too small to prosper. Many small countries outperform economically much larger nations, and for sound reasons. What makes you big, important, rich, and strong in the modern world is not the size, but the rate of growth. In the period of 2015, Montenegro experienced a period of solid economic growth. The outbreak of COVID-19 and the restrictions that followed the fight against the pandemic were a painful tribute to the country's economy, strongly relying on tourism. Given that the tourism sector accounts for over 20% of GDP, a drastic decline of arrival of foreign tourists in 2020 contributed to a strong reduction in gross domestic product. As a consequence of the crisis, the country's fiscal position deteriorated, and the crisis has exacerbated the external trade imbalance of Montenegro. This is where the agility of a small country comes into play. As an attempt to prevent the consequences of the crisis for the economy and the population, the government was able to efficiently adopt a wide set of support measures, including wage subsidies to the most vulnerable sectors, credit lines, cash transfers to the most vulnerable, and additional support for tourism and agriculture. In this regard, please note that Montenegro had one of the highest GDP growths in Europe in 2021. Thank you all for your attention. I hope we have good work today.